Here's the thing about survival that nobody wants to talk about. The part that every movie skips over and every tough guy prepper conveniently leaves out of their videos. You have to sleep, not want to, not should have to. Your body is not optional equipment. You can override with willpower and energy drinks. After 24 hours without sleep, your cognitive function drops by about 25%, which means you're making decisions like someone who's legally drunk. After 48 hours, you start experiencing microsleeps, where your brain just shuts off for a few seconds, whether you agree to it or not. And if that happens while you're on watch, or moving through dangerous territory, you're not falling asleep, you're falling dead. After 72 hours, hallucinations start, paranoia sets in, and your ability to distinguish a real threat from a shadow on the wall becomes essentially a coin flip. Sleep isn't a luxury in a collapse. It's as critical as water, and going without it will kill you just as reliably. It just drives you insane first, but here's the nightmare within the nightmare. Sleeping is the most vulnerable thing a human being can do. You're unconscious, you're horizontal, your reaction time is measured in the seconds. It takes your brain to even figure out where you are and what's happening. And in a world where there are no locks that can't be broken and no police coming when you scream, closing your eyes feels like signing your own death certificate if you're alone and you don't have someone to stand watch. While you rest, every single night becomes a problem that has to be solved, or it solves you. So let me show you how to sleep. When there's nobody watching the door, using nothing but your environment, some basic physics, and the kind of paranoid creativity that keeps mammals alive in a world full of predators. Method 1, choose your location like your life depends on it, because it literally does. The number one mistake people make when they need to sleep in an unsafe environment is picking a spot that feels comfortable rather than a spot that's defensible. Comfort will get you killed. You're not looking for soft ground and a nice view. You're looking for a position that is difficult to approach without making noise, has limited entry points, that force anyone coming for you into a predictable path, and gives you at least one escape route that doesn't require going through the same door. A threat would come in from high ground is your best friend here. The second or third floor of any building is dramatically safer to sleep in than the ground floor, because anyone approaching has to climb stairs, and stairs are noisy, slow, and create a natural choke point. That works in your favor. Avoid the top floor though, because if you need to leave in a hurry, you don't want to be trapped. With nothing above you but roof, and nothing below you but the people you're running from, the sweet spot is the middle floors, where you have the option to go up or down, depending on where the threat is coming from. If you're in the wilderness rather than a city, the same principles apply. But the terrain does the work for you. Sleep against a rock wall or a cliff face, so that one entire side of your position is physically impossible to approach from. Thick brush or dense deadfall on two more sides narrows the approach to a single direction that you can monitor. A slight depression in the ground like a natural ditch or a hollow behind a fallen tree keeps your profile low enough that someone scanning the area at night would have to practically step on you before they'd notice you were there. You're not trying to be invisible, you're trying to be inconvenient enough that anyone looking for an easy target moves on to someone. Who didn't think this hard about where they passed out? Method 2. Build an early warning system out of garbage. You don't need motion sensors or security cameras, you need noise. Anything that makes a sound when disturbed becomes an alarm system that works while your brain is offline. And the beautiful thing about this approach is that the materials are everywhere and cost you nothing. The classic version is the can alarm, a length of string or wire, stretched across an approach path at about ankle height with empty aluminum cans threaded onto it, each containing a few small rocks or pieces of gravel. When someone's foot catches the line, the cans rattle and clatter against each other, and in the dead silence of a post-collapse night, that sound might as well be a fire alarm. You can set up multiple lines at different distances from your sleeping position, creating concentric rings of detection that give you progressively earlier warnings. The further out they are, the outer ring tells you someone's in the area. The middle ring tells you they're getting close, and if the inner ring goes off, you should already be moving. But cans on string are just the beginning. Dry leaves and twigs scattered on hard floor surfaces create a carpet of crunch. That's nearly impossible to walk across silently, especially in the dark when the person approaching can't see what they're stepping on. Broken glass, spread around doorways and window access points, does the same thing, but louder and with the added psychological deterrent that whoever's approaching now has to decide if what they want from you is worth walking through broken glass in the dark, plastic water bottles half filled with gravel and balanced on the edge of a door frame. Will topple and crash the instant someone pushes that door open, and they're almost impossible to spot if you place them on the hinge side. where the door's movement sweeps them off. Stack 3 or 4 of these across different entry points, and you've turned a dead building into a percussion instrument that plays a very specific song the moment an uninvited guest arrives. The key to making any of these systems work is testing them yourself before you go to sleep. Walk through your own trip lines, step on your own leaf carpet, push open your own booby-trap door if you can get through quietly. So can someone else, and you need to redesign it. If you can't get through without making a racket, congratulations. Neither can they, and that sound is going to buy you the 5 to 10 seconds of warning that separates waking up in time from never waking up at all. Method 3. Sleep in shifts with yourself. This sounds like a contradiction, but it's actually one of the oldest survival techniques humans have, and your body is already wired for it. Even if you've never used it, it's called segmented sleep, and before the invention of artificial lighting, it was the default way humans slept. For thousands of years, instead of sleeping in one continuous 8-hour block, you break your sleep into 2 or more shorter periods with alert intervals in between. The simplest version is the 2-phase approach. You sleep for about 4 hours, then you get up, spend an hour checking your perimeter, listening to the environment, adjusting your alarm systems, hydrating and assessing whether anything has changed since you closed your eyes. Then you go back down for another 3 to 4 hours. Your body adapts to this rhythm surprisingly fast, usually within 2 or 3 days, and the result is that you're never unconscious for long enough. That the world can change dramatically around you without your knowledge. 4 hours is enough to get a full cycle of deep sleep and REM sleep, which means you're getting the restorative benefits your brain and body need without leaving yourself exposed for the kind of extended period where someone could observe you sleeping, plan an approach, and execute it while you're still in dreamland if your situation is particularly dangerous. You can push this further into a polyphasic pattern, sleeping for 90 minutes at a time, which corresponds to a single complete sleep cycle, then staying alert for 30 to 60 minutes. Before sleeping again. This is harder on your body and not sustainable for more than a week or so, but in a high-threat environment where you genuinely cannot afford to be unconscious. For 4 hours straight, it keeps you functional enough to make decisions and alert enough to hear trouble coming. Sailors crossing oceans alone have used this method for decades, and if it works in the middle of the Atlantic with nothing but water and weather trying to kill you, it'll work in an abandoned apartment building. With nothing but people trying to do the same method, make your sleeping position a fortress of inconvenience. Even if someone gets past your alarm systems and finds the room you're sleeping in, you can still make getting to you so annoying, time-consuming, and noisy that you'll wake up long before they reach your body. The concept here is layered defense through furniture and obstruction, and it works because humans in the dark are clumsy, impatient, and easily disoriented. Start with the door. If it opens inward, barricade it with the heaviest furniture you can move. Desks, filing cabinets, dressers, anything that adds mass and friction. If it opens outward, wedge it shut with doorstops, folded cardboard jammed under the gap, or a belt looped around the handle and tied to something immovable. A chair tilted under the doorknob at an angle is a classic for a reason. It turns a simple push into a physics problem that most people can't solve quickly. In the dark, while also trying to be quiet, but don't stop at the door. Inside the room itself, create a maze of obstacles between the entrance and where you're actually lying down. Chairs turned upside down with their legs pointing up, scattered debris on the floor, a table flipped on its side as a secondary barrier. You're not trying to build an impenetrable wall. You're trying to make anyone who enters stumble, trip, bump into things, and make enough noise in the process that you're fully awake and already reaching for your exit plan before they figured out which way you're lying in the dark. Even a single overturned chair between someone and their target adds 5 to 10 seconds of confused fumbling, and those seconds are the difference between being caught sleeping and being gone before they reach where you were. And here's the detail that most people miss. Don't sleep where someone would expect to find you. If there's a bed or a couch in the room, don't sleep on it, sleep behind it, or under a desk in the far corner, or in a closet with the door pulled mostly shut if someone does get into the room. Their eyes and their attention will go straight to the obvious sleeping spots first, and in the time it takes them to realize the bed is empty and start scanning the room, you've already heard them, you're already oriented, and you're already moving toward the window. Or the secondary exit you identified before you lay down. Method 5, use the environment as a blanket of sound. Complete silence is actually your enemy when it comes to sleeping safely, and this is counterintuitive enough that it trips up almost everyone. In perfect silence, every tiny sound you make. Breathing, Shifting, coughing becomes audible to anyone in the area, and it also means every tiny sound they make jolts you awake in a panic, which means you never reach deep sleep and your body never gets the rest it actually needs. What you want is a consistent layer of ambient noise that masks small sounds in both directions, while still allowing loud, sudden sounds to break through and wake you. Nature provides this beautifully. If you're outdoors sleeping near moving water, a stream, a river, or even a drainage pipe with a steady trickle creates a wall of white noise that covers your breathing and minor movements. While still being quiet enough that a snapping twig or a rattling can alarm will cut through it, wind through trees does the same thing. Rain on a roof is almost perfect, because it's loud enough to cover almost any movement noise you make, but irregular enough that a sudden sharp sound will still register against the pattern and pull you awake. If you're indoors, you have to create this yourself. An open window on a windy night gives you a low-level howl that serves the same purpose. A dripping faucet or a container slowly collecting water produces a rhythmic ambient sound that your brain quickly learns to ignore, while remaining sensitive to anything that breaks the pattern, even crumpling up a plastic bag and placing it near a draft so it rustles intermittently. Gives you a consistent baseline noise that your subconscious can monitor without keeping you consciously awake. The goal is to give your brain a sonic wallpaper that it can tune out for sleep purposes, but that simultaneously masks the small sounds of your existence from anyone listening nearby. Method 6. The decoy camp. This is the advanced technique, and it requires a little extra effort before you go to sleep. But it's worth every second of setup time because it exploits the most predictable behavior of anyone looking for a sleeping target. If someone is searching for you or scanning an area for vulnerable people to rob, they're going to check the most obvious sleeping spots first. The room with the closed door. The sheltered corner, the spot next to the fire remains, so you give them exactly what they're looking for, just not with you in it. Set up a decoy sleeping position, somewhere visible or findable. A rolled-up jacket under a blanket on a couch does a surprisingly convincing job of looking like a sleeping person in low light. Especially if you add a hat or a hood poking out from the top, place it in the obvious spot. The room with the best shelter, the corner closest to where a fire was burning, the place anyone with common sense would choose to sleep. Then you actually sleep somewhere less comfortable, but far less obvious, ideally in a different room or on a different floor entirely. With your alarm system set between the decoy and your real position, what happens if someone comes looking is almost elegant in its simplicity. They find the decoy first because it's in the obvious spot. They approach it, which takes time and makes noise. They discover it's fake, which creates a moment of confusion and hesitation, and all of that gives you time to wake up, time to orient, time to grab your essentials, and slip out through the exit you already planned. You've traded 10 minutes of setup time for a buffer of confusion that could save your life. And the best part is that even if the decoy doesn't fool anyone for more than a few seconds, those few seconds of them approaching, examining, and processing what they're looking at are seconds you're using to disappear. Method 7, the buddy system without a buddy. If you're truly alone and you've accepted that, you don't have the luxury of another human being watching over you while you sleep, then you need to start thinking about non-human alarm systems that never sleep, never get tired, and never lose focus. The most obvious one is a dog, and if you have access to one in a collapse scenario, that animal is worth more than almost any piece of gear. You could carry dogs, hear frequencies, and detect smells that are completely invisible to human senses, and more importantly, they react to those stimuli vocally and physically in ways that are impossible to sleep through. A dog that growls or barks at an approaching stranger is a motion detector, an alarm siren, and a psychological deterrent, all wrapped in a fur coat that also keeps you warm at night. Throughout human history, dogs have served as the original security system, and there's a reason every ancient civilization that survived long enough to write things down also had dogs sleeping at the perimeter of their camps. But even without a dog, you can use the animal kingdom to your advantage. Birds are extraordinarily sensitive to disturbance, and if you're sleeping near a tree line or an area with nesting birds, the sudden burst of wings and alarm calls when something large moves through the area is a natural early warning system that covers a much wider radius than anything you could build with cans and string. Frogs and insects produce a constant background chorus at night that abruptly stops when a large animal or person enters the area, and that sudden silence is itself an alarm. If you train yourself to notice it, your subconscious is remarkably good at detecting changes in ambient sound patterns, which means you can actually learn to wake up when the frogs stop singing, even if you can't articulate why you woke up. Evolution built this feature into your brain millions of years ago for exactly this purpose. You just need to learn to trust it again. Here's the uncomfortable reality that ties all of this together. You will never sleep as safely alone as you would with someone watching over you, and no amount of tripwires, barricades, or decoys will change that fundamental truth. What these methods do is shift the math from catastrophically dangerous to manageable risk, from guaranteed vulnerability to layered probability. Each technique alone reduces your exposure by a margin. Combined together, they create a security envelope that would require a determined, skilled, and patient adversary to penetrate. And the kind of people who are that capable are almost always looking for easier targets anyway, because effort is expensive in a world where calories and energy are finite. The real secret to sleeping safely in a collapse isn't any single technique. It's the mindset of treating sleep as a tactical operation. Rather than something that just happens to you when you're tired, you plan it, you prepare for it, you choose your location deliberately, build your warning systems methodically, structure your sleep schedule strategically, and design your exit routes before you close your eyes. Sleeping becomes something you do with intention, rather than something you collapse into out of exhaustion, and that shift in thinking is what separates the person who wakes up in the morning from the one who doesn't. So when the world falls apart and the night stretches out in front of you like a black ocean of silence and threat, and every shadow looks like it might be a person, and every sound might be a footstep, remember this: you don't need someone watching your back. If you've already made your back impossible to find, layer your defenses, trust your alarm systems, rest in phases, sleep where nobody expects, and keep one ear tuned to the frequency of things that shouldn't be happening. Your brain has been doing this for 200,000 years of human evolution. It knows how to sleep with one eye open. You just have to stop fighting that instinct and start building a system around it. The night is long and you are alone, but alone and prepared is 1,000 times safer than surrounded and careless. Set your lines, lock your door, check your exits, close your eyes, and if the cans rattle, you'll be gone before whoever tripped them ever reaches the room where you weren't.